Go.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Oil Drop Podcast. This is podcast number, Adam, fill me, and sorry, I did not fill in the details.
67.
67. We're free! Free specifically of wonderful, wonderful man who has guided the ship straight to the beach. Peter Chia.
Yeah, the beach is like a nice, easy ending. He steered the ship into rocks.
It was more of a BP oil spill than anything else.
Oh yeah. But regardless, the key thing here is that the Chiarelli has had a history from us, especially, where we've constantly went in and said that he's not a good GM. He really needs to be replaced. And honestly, on that front, we're going to be talking about a few other topics as well, mostly all Chiarelli based, and as well as the All-Star game. Do you guys think that this is the wrong time for the firing? What do you think? Why do you think that the firing was suddenly spurred? Because we're on that was a third loss in a row, and he was informed in the middle of the Detroit game before the fire.
I don't think there's a great time to ever do that per se. But I can actually kind of get down or agree with the timing that they did go with, because it's right before the All-Star game. There is a huge break in between games. Today is Tuesday. The Oilers still don't play again until Saturday, I think. Mm-hmm. The space in between the games is massive. It gets people, gives them some time to kind of put it behind them. It's almost like you imagine yourself getting fired from a job. You want to have that time to kind of digest it, maybe get over it a little bit. And with the All-Star game there, they're not doing anything. I thought the timing was as good as it could be.
Yeah, I think it gives whoever the Oilers choose a replacement, or the only two ways, right? If they replace them right away, it gives the replacement time to go back, look at footage, evaluate the team, see how they may want to make changes. On the other side, if they don't find somebody, then at least it gives the management time to find someone else, interview candidates, to find someone they truly think is worthy, rather than just going, Keith Gretzky, you go in there and we'll pick someone at the end of the season. It's kind of a better process to me. The other side of it being, like James said, it kind of gives the players a chance to kind of redigest and reevaluate the season and realize that we're only 3 points off a playoff spot. Yes, we fired a coach and a GM in the same season, but at the end of the day, we can still make the playoffs. Now, the other side of the coin being, we don't really know what's going on in the Oilers organization. And if they chose to fire him in the middle of a game on a 3-game losing streak, when it seems like they've been looking to potentially fire him for a while, what was the straw that broke the camel's back? Like, you look at Koskinen's contract and they say, no, we had a hand in it, but Chiarelli still did it. You're like, okay, so then if you didn't fire him, it's weird.
It's literally the Koskinen contract. Actually, that's something that's we hadn't had a chance to talk about as well. Koskinen has been re-signed for 4.5 for 3 years.
Yep.
Yeah. Which he has a 27-game portfolio to go with here, and I think the best comparable that I can come up with on why I'm really concerned about this is Mathieu Garon versus Dwayne Rolson back in 2007 or 8. Garon was amazing. He stole the starting position from Rolson. People went, oh, Rolson's over the hill. He's done. Shipped him off, traded him at the trade deadline. Rolson was okay for the Wild, I believe it was, and then he ended up at Tampa Bay and then led them to a Stanley Cup final. Or was it a conference final?
It was a conference final.
Actually.
There's the
conference final.
But still.
But still, he was a huge part of what was going on in that whole run. And meanwhile, Mathieu Garon in the very next season, after being signed for, I believe it was 3.2 for 2 years, went back to being the bad goaltender that he was, and we quickly found ourselves in a situation where we had to rush Delorier. If you remember, Delorier back in 2008, I believe it was, or 2009, I don't really remember. Years all blend together, you guys know. And when you put that all into perspective, The only thing I can really pull from this is I'm really scared because already Koskinen working out the way that he did, it looked like Chiarelli lucked out, and now it looks like he's going to luck out even harder because he gets to sign this contract, and now he's gone, and he never has to worry about any consequences for it.
Yeah, it's...
Whereas if you were to compare it, like, and the other aspect too, in terms of the organization as a whole, this isn't just like Chiarelli's firing isn't just like a Chiarelli's been fired, we're moving on to the next guy. It's like the entire organization is like all over the place right now, and that's the best way to put it, because on one hand they're saying that the Oilers organization as a whole had to part to play, like it was the Oilers organization's decision to sign Koskinen. And on the other hand, there's a comment going like, Chiarelli had absolute control during the entire time that he was GM. He had like the true control. And those are contradicting statements.
Yeah.
Those are contradicting statements. These don't match up. So either the organization is just lying, or something else is going on, or they're just trying to justify a bad signing and not make the organization look bad. My personal opinion is I honestly believe Chiarelli had absolute control, and he did really genuinely have like his decisions for everything, and they're probably just backing up the organization to make them look less shitty, so because they fired him after he signed the contract.
To be honest, that would be the better of the two options. Because if you look,
I think that's
like,
the realistic option.
That's the terrifying thing is that this guy's been running it by himself the whole time, and then that's the best option. Because if we don't have that option, that means that the problem is still there.
Yeah. Lesser of two evils.
Like, it blows my mind. And then since the few days since he's been fired, there's been reports coming out about potential trades in the past, and I think the one that is the most terrifying that has happened, that came out recently, Friedman released today, was that we were looking to trade for Duncan Keith, who, James, you said turns 36 this year?
He turns 36 in July.
I think he still has another 4 years on his contract or something, like 4 or 5 years. And he's on at, I think, $8 million, something crazy like that.
No, that's Seabrook, who's got the high cap hit. Keith is the length of the contract is really outrageous, but the actual cap hit, I'm just looking it up here real quick, it was slightly more manageable.
So the issue being, it sounded like from Friedman's tweet I think it was on 31 Thoughts, is that it was a big trade, which, considering the rumors,
it was a blockbuster expected to happen.
So concerning the Oilers, that likely means either Puljujarvi and or the first and or another piece would have been going for Duncan Keith, and maybe a pick or something more, annoying Chiarelli, nothing at all. So, like, and then there is the trade about Ryan McDonough, which I believe it was Ryan McDonough for the 4th overall.
No, let's digest the Keith one.
Yeah, let's go with the Keith one first. Okay, so first off, James, if you want to start, I mean, where do you even start with that one?
Well, to kind of circle back around, his cap hit is about 5.5 for this season and 4 more after that. So that brings him until he's essentially 40. I don't know. I mean, what was the potential trade that we were going to make exactly?
I think
that's the be-all.
Yeah, I'm going to try to find it, but I'm pretty sure it was just rumored that Keith was in the works, and there was nothing else that came out about it.
The funny thing in all of it is that Duncan Keith is having one of his better seasons in his career.
No, I was thinking the only deterrent is his age, really. I mean, he's liable to drop off at any point at this time.
He already dropped off last year. Honestly, if I were to make that statement, he dropped off last year.
Okay, so it says per Friedman, I think at some point in time they'll ask Duncan Keith would he be willing to do it. But I don't know if at that time is going to be now. Before Peter Chiarelli got fired, I heard there was a big talking about something potentially big with Edmonton. But I don't even know if that's still on the map anymore. But I don't know what they would have to give it up to really make Edmonton a ton better. So there was nothing really.
The big reason. Yeah. the big reason that Nicholson quoted for future going forward with the team is that they're going to stay competitive with the playoff hunt without giving up futures. That statement makes it sound as though they were planning to give up either Kyler Yamamoto or Puljujärvi for the CEO to step in like that, or a first round draft pick.
But at the same time, if Chiarelli's been doing all these trades, all these really awful trades without anybody stepping in before, does that mean either they put restrictions on him now where he has to go run through Nicholson for everything he's doing, or is it just that they broke it off before anything else happened? Because that means that they've been essentially saying, those trades are bad, but we'll let you keep doing them because we think you have faith in them. Like it's this really, I really want to see what's been going on in the organization, and I want more of this to come out because it's.
I think we're dangerously treading into the rumor mill.
I would agree.
The bad aspect of the organization. And honestly, like if I were to quote, one of the biggest problems with the organization over the past couple of years is that fake rumor mill, where you get like every story in between from Draisaitl, like Nurse, like having, what was it?
Oh, Draisaitl punching Nurse because Nurse.
Draisaitl.
Drai slept with his sister.
Nurse sleeping with Draisaitl's girlfriend, and Draisaitl punched him in the face. To there's alcohol abuse that Aberg had, and that's why he got sent down, and all this other crap. And like my only comment in all of that is, it's their job, right? It's like what they're doing year to year. This isn't a matter of like, oh, they're coming in. Sorry, is the police siren alarm very?
That's fine. It's gone.
This is not a matter of, okay, you know, this organization is coming in. Sorry, this isn't a matter of like, oh, like this is the big tournament, guys. It's one game means all. Like every year, this is happening. 82 games, and after that, you have 7-game series or long extended series. So a huge part of it is treating it like a job. And honestly, like a big part about it is that like something small might happen in a practice, and through a grapevine, a blogger will come in for claiming he's an Oilers insider, going like, "Oh yeah, but you know, Nurse had was it slept with Draisaitl's girlfriend," and all these kind of stupid rumors come out. So from that front, like I have to take what they say at face value. And as far as I understand it, based on the conversations that have been had from Chiarelli and Nicholson to media, what my conclusion is Chiarelli had the absolute confidence going forward. So he got to build the team the way he wanted to, and he didn't have to basically answer directly to anybody. Nicholson basically went with a blank check and went, "It's yours, you can do whatever with it." And then at the end of like this season, when it's like a sort of panic that sets in with fans right now in terms of how do we have the best player on the planet and we suck.
I think part of it for me was that Nicholson
after the coaching change, I think Chiarelli's job was like safe for a couple of weeks. But once that first 10, 20 games, 15 games ran out and we started losing again, it's just Chiarelli went for 1-2 panic trades that probably looked really bad, and they recognized it to be bad, and they realized he's selling out futures in a desperate attempt to try to keep his job. Because honestly, one of the worst statements Nicholson could have made is if he makes the playoffs, he keeps his job.
That's for me at least where concern comes in, because not only that, but Nicholson, if you guys remember when he was first hired, initially said every decision runs through me. He's essentially who up here, and whoever his hires down here, Chiarelli controls the team. I make every last decision. So at some point, assuming that Chiarelli did have control, something shifted. But then at the same time, Nicholson's overlooking everything, or is saying, yeah, you can do, keep doing what you're doing, and then backs his man. Now, I mean, it could be that Nicholson was saying, trying to say externally what they were saying internally. You're still controlling the team. We have faith in you. If you make the playoffs, we know you clearly done a good job, kind of thing. But at the same time, that's not good.
I guess since we're on the topic of Nicholson, James, did you want to chime in on your thoughts in terms of that firing press conference that Nicholson gave, where he made the statement of how the players had to be better and we had to get players of right character?
I thought it was a pretty genuine press conference, to be honest with you, but it was genuine, but it was fluff at the same time. I mean, saying like there's something in the water here in Edmonton, like there are T-shirts being made of that now, and instantly people just didn't take it seriously. Like I think his heart is in the right place. I don't really know what to make with Nicholson. Like I know like his job title and all of that, but what is he? Is he like the public face of Daryl?
Basically a CEO.
He's the POHO, isn't he? Or no, because Shirley was president of hockey operations as well, wasn't he?
Yeah, he's a CEO.
He is, yeah.
He's like the public face of Daryl Cates. Like you never hear anything from Daryl Cates all year. So Bob Nicholson is like, what is he? I don't get it.
That's what I was like. That's the thing. Is initially he was supposed to be in control of the team, and he was making all decisions. But then you have the GM.
As far as I can understand it, with the Nicholson change, it's like Cates' attempt to go in and say, like, you know what, I'm not able to do anything with this. I shouldn't be the one that, like, leading the charge. So I'll get this guy. He has a long history of very good success with Hockey Canada. I'll put him in charge, and he'll be the CEO. He'll be the representative. He'll run the company. I'll be on the sides, like, enjoying the profits.
Getting long-term success with Hockey Canada, congratulations. I could have done that when I was 15, just saying.
It's Hockey Canada. It's you have the biggest glut of the best players in the world.
And honestly, with Hockey Canada as well, as indicated in our most recent juniors, they haven't recognized the fact that the game has shifted towards a more skill-centric style, and they're just trying to play it for grit.
Well, and the concern that is that Hockey Canada's always had politics involved. Like, if you didn't play for the world, if you didn't make the junior camp as a kid,
Pietro got every single start.
He
played a fantastic. I'll be honest. He played a fantastic quarterfinal game, but up to that point, I didn't really see what the coaches saw to make Pietro that much better than Ian Watts or Ian Scott.
Ian Scott, but even before we even got there, after the first game, he said there's no goalie controversy. We're playing both guys so they can get warm, but we're going with DiPietro. Like they haven't even started,
our guy.
And that's because he was the guy since he was 15. Like that's Hockey Canada in a nutshell. If you were there,
so then let's look at the good teams and let's figure out, like, in terms of what are they doing differently in terms of the approach. Because, like, as much as you can stand there and say that, like, oh, this, like, we need to go after skill, Tampa Bay still overpaid heavily for some really bad players, like Brandon Carlisle, right?
But I think part of Tampa Bay is they've got their big players signed up to reasonable deals they can work with.
Let's be honest with the taxation. Florida has like almost no taxes.
We have the smallest amount of taxes of any province.
We do.
Like that, I get that excuse. I really do. And Edmonton isn't exactly a tourist destination city. We're not gonna lie there. It's been a pretty nice winter right now. It's been nice, but at the same time, it's not Vancouver. It's not.
Okay. Let me come forward. Let me come forward with another example in terms of the whole character aspect that Nicholson's coming from, and the whole character versus skill. Because this is basically maybe a philosophical approach more than anything else. One of the trades that Calgary was ridiculed for over the offseason in terms of, I don't think that's even quality, was Elias Lindholm and Noah Hannafin for Dougie Hamilton and Michael Furland. Yeah. And people were going, oh my God, Dougie's like really good. What the hell are you guys doing? Dougie was the leader in goals scored last year. What happened?
Oh, another thing, my computer just decided to open BitTorrent for no reason. We're all good.
So Dougie Hamilton led all players in goals for last year. And that's like, you gave him up for that little? That seems like way too little. You gave him up on an experimental player in Hannafin and this other thing, and then rumors started coming out like Dougie Hamilton didn't fit the team culture, and all that kind of stuff. But look at where Calgary is in the standings, and look at where Carolina sits. Mind you, Carolina, biggest problem I think they have is the fact that they traded Skinner for shit.
Their goaltending is terrible again.
Their goaltending is terrible, and they also tried Skinner for shit. They have no line outside of the top line. The top line is their only line.
Ferland's
it's just basically the Sebastian Aho team.
Ferland's been good for them, to be fair.
Ferland's been good for them. But Dougie Hamilton started off the season horribly, has been a little bit better, but still has been really poor for his standards.
Calgary, I think part of it is they have a good defense score that's finally playing as they were expected to 3 years ago. Mark Giordano is having a ridiculous season. Johnny Gaudreau is playing out of his skin right now. Mike Riddick.
By the way, McDavid and Johnny Gaudreau, exact same points, exact same assists.
Yeah, that I hate that with a passion. Mike Riddick has stepped up, or David Riddick, sorry, has stepped up out of nowhere.
I call that in fantasy hockey in the preseason cast. I said you should pick up David Riddick. He will pop off this season.
The problem for me is I was so skeptical because every single time I talked to a Flames fan in the last 4 years, it was this guy's going to be really good this year. This goalie project is going to come out. Blah 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 blah. Mike Smith shit the bed so hard to start the season. They went with their backup, and their backup is now one of the best goalies in the league. Like they've got a little bit of luck, but
they got a lot of
luck. But at the same time, their teams played well. It's the only teams. There's two teams in the league that you could clearly say were going to be better than anyone else at the start of the season. That was San Jose and Tampa Bay. And Tampa Bay is on a different fucking plane than any other team in the league right now. They're breaking records they've broken the last 3 years in a row. But the Flames are up there right now, and as much as it pains me to say, they're doing something right. They've got a good decor. They've built from the back end out, and they got a top line. To be fair, their bottom two lines are trash on forwards.
Who cares, man? Their top six.
But their top six is producing. James Neal's a mistake, but to me that speaks of depth. You have your star players, you have your decor, and then you have your depth. And your depth is going to cover for your star players who falter, like James Neal playing like complete ass. They have guys that can cover for that.
Yeah, James Neal, that contract's going to hurt them, but right now it doesn't matter too much.
But at the same time, like every aspect of how Calgary has done their everything is just in such stark contrast to the Oilers. Like Sean Monahan was signed to a way less expensive contract than Draisaitl. They pretty much almost essentially the same stats. They play with ridiculously good players, and the question mark becomes who's boosting who. But still, Monahan is paid almost $2 million less than Draisaitl.
Draisaitl really set the market. Is part of the issue is that Peter Chiarelli didn't.
Chiarelli set the market.
Right. What I'm saying, that's what I meant. Is that Draisaitl's contract? Draisaitl's agent is a fucking amazing agent. To be fair, he's dealing with Peter Chiarelli, so we'll give him a bit of an asterisk on that one. But
and many people might say that like, oh, what does it matter? Like $2 million, it doesn't matter. It's just $2 million. But that's a $2 million that could have given us enough cap space to make a move in the offseason.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right now, we're sitting at pretty much with the most recent trade.
$400K.
If Sakura comes back, we're over cap.
Yeah.
$2 million, like that's a bottom six forward, like an NHL bottom six forward.
Or $2 million you can put towards someone else if you get rid of an extra contract. Like
it's $2 million that we can put towards Tyler Pitlick.
Yeah.
We don't need death forwards. What are you talking about?
Right.
We have Puliar and Yamamoto. Like.
You don't even need to sign Tyler Pitlick to that much, 1.5, and you've got a guy that can sometimes flex onto the top line.
And the concern right now is the guys we have in the AHL. Like Tyler Benson's supposed to be our best prospect, and he's playing okay. Gambardella.
Yamamoto's been
Gambardella stepped in. Top prospect outside of the obvious of Puliarvi and Yamamoto. Gambardella's been okay, and like it's been there's players. Our AHL team is quite good, but they're all because they're older AHL players. None of them are really prospects right now. We have Caleb Jones and Ethan Bear. One of them we might lose in the expansion draft. We have Clefbaum, Larson, and then a nurse, and then a fuck ton of seventh defenseman. Alex Chiasson, stepping aside from this, do you guys think we should be trading Chia on to the deadline? Because that's where we're running into issues now. Is that if we're pushing for the playoffs, we need to keep Chia on. But if we're not, then we need to sell him because we need picks and prospects for next season.
We do.
It depends where we are 2 weeks from now.
Depends on where we are. Yeah, it 100% depends on where we are.
Obviously, yeah, we do need to trade him. I mean, the guy is on pace for 25 goals or so this season.
He's at like 24% shooting percentage too.
Yeah,
it's lower than Pettersson.
Yeah, I mean,
27%. Pettersson's at 28.
He'll have value. That's the bottom line. I mean, he will have value at the trade deadline. Whether don't get your hopes up. I mean, I would settle for a third rounder, but there will be some value there.
Yep.
Honestly, I think we can get a second rounder out of him because he's showing a lot of.
If it's someone that's really going all in on the cup, then yeah. I mean, if it's like Tampa Bay,
and with teams overpaying as much as they have been the past couple off seasons, it seems like an embarrassment that Chiarelli couldn't pull a second rounder for Patrick Maroon last year, just as the comparison.
Fuck.
But that being said, based upon comments made, unless we continue trending downward, or unless Colorado and the Ducks get their shit in gear and put the last wildcard spot out of reach, this is a very likely possibility that we're looking at losing another asset on a team that almost has no assets.
Yeah, it's. Go ahead, James.
I was going to say, but we'll get cap room, but with Chase on, we won't because his cap hit is like $650K. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, literally won't matter.
No. I mean on the other end, where we give up an asset in order to go for a cup run.
Well, that's the problem where we're at now. Is that if we're making a push for the playoffs, we have no room to work with. Like, we have to if we're paying for a player in first round pick, we don't have any cap space to give them. Like we can't.
Okay.
Contender though. I mean, even if we sneak into a wild card spot, if we're not a cup contender,
we're just gonna lose to Calgary.
Yeah, you can't
swept by Calgary, and it'll look like
cannot trade first round picks or Ethan Bears for rentals. We're not a cup contender.
We're not.
The ultimate.
And everyone's been going on about how much better. Since Keith Gretzky's come in, the Oilers drafting has been, but honestly, I don't see it because the prospects that we have, I don't see the likelihood of any of them being on the top half of our roster.
I think there's two ways to look at it. There's drafting, there's development, and both need work.
Both need a lot of work.
But my problem with where we're at now is we're with Chiarelli out and where we stand now, we're probably in the worst possible spot we could be in, and I like to call it the wild zone. We're in limbo. We're not a contender. We're a playoff bubble team. We're not shitty with McDavid and Drai. We won't be shitty enough to be a bottom 5 team.
And we have almost no assets.
We have no assets. We have no prospects, no development. We have no depth.
Space.
We have we have zero cap space. We're essentially took the Wild out of the cap space of the Chicago Blackhawks a few years ago, and then throw us in the middle. That's us. We can't do anything, but we're not shitty enough to be able to tank to do anything.
So let's imagine a world then where we now need to replace this GM with another one. John Shannon threw out a couple of names: Mark Hunter, Kelly McCrimmon, who is the assistant GM for the Golden Knights, Mike Gillis, Ron Hextall, and suggested that Keith Gretzky is not an option. In addition to that, the elephant in the room is Stevie Y and Yzerman, which seems like a very unlikely possibility because all signs keep pointing him towards Detroit.
Yeah, even Bob McKenzie said, "I bet my bottom." Or he did something like, I bet in a year from now that he will be.
Bob McKenzie also thought that what's his name, Bob Babcock would go join the Oilers because he wanted to coach the best hockey player.
He said it was an option. He clearly said I think. And to be fair, he did say about this, but I mean every single source in the NHL has said that Steve Yzerman is not coach. If he's going anywhere, he's going to Detroit. If he's not going back to Tampa. And
my personal thoughts on this is that I think we might be in danger of getting like a rookie GM here, because if you're an established guy, why the fuck would you want this job?
You would. It's literally like going into some like Super Meat Boy, the hardest difficulty, like just some stupid fucking impossible game on the hardest setting.
What
as
I
a first
will
player.
say is Kelly McCrimmon seems like a very good idea in terms of replacement GM.
I'd take him over Ron Hextall.
Yeah.
Okay, so one comment I did want to make with Ron Hextall. Ron Hextall has a very good history of great trades, great prospects, great development. He's turned the Flyers organization, which had no futures, into one that has a lot of futures.
Not if you talk to
the
a Flyers
Flyers haven't gotten any better, right? And the big what I'm saying is like Carter Hart looks to be like the starter for the future for the Flyers.
Ivan Provorov.
Ivan Provorov looks amazing, although he's having not a great season this year.
He's having a rough year, but I think that's
Shane Gostisbehere.
A lot of issues.
He's having a rough patch, but he's still good. He was also responsible for bringing in Couturier. But the big thing is that people have quoted his organization to be a very like authoritarian format, to the point where like he forces everyone to wear knee braces, which is
beyond fucking stupid. They don't.
Stupid.
So for
James, who would you consider among those four names to be the better replacement?
Anyone but Mike Gillis, honestly.
You know what? I think for me, Kelly McCrimmon and Mark Hunter stand out of the two that would be the best options. Because
I don't agree with Mark Hunter,
but I was gonna say I was gonna say out of all of the four, it's McCrimmon. I don't even want to say Mark Hunter because I don't want Mark Hunter either. Really, McCrimmon in that list is the only one I really want. Ron Hextall. Yeah. The amount of stupidity you need to actually stick all your players in knee braces is insane.
Yeah.
The thing with Hunter is he's been owner of the London Knights since the dawn of time, it feels like.
He's not going to leave it.
An open secret about the London Knights is that they get prospects and people that no other junior team can have. And I don't know the inner workings of it, but the London Knights, something smells bad about that team. And everyone knows it, but they have an unfair playing it field that doesn't apply to anybody else. And so I feel like Hunter's success is questionable over the last years. So I'm not interested in having him.
So to point out for Kelly McCrimmon, he actually comes from a very similar kind of background in terms of his history, where he's been the coach and the GM for the Brandon Wheat Kings since the 80s, basically.
Yeah.
He had a long stretches in between where he wasn't or he was not in any kind of position. I would assume perhaps fired or took a leave of absence or something in between. But the significant thing is that the Brandon Wheat Kings stayed pretty competitive throughout. But the biggest aspect of it is that when he got onto the Golden Knights, he transferred pretty much all those skills in some capacity with GM. And GM has put together let's be honest here, a Stanley Cup Finals team out of nothing.
A good team out of players that were rejects.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So in our circumstance where we're working with almost no cap space, no assets, no anything, we need a guy that can see the rejects.
Yeah. I think the other thing worth noting too is Spector when he brought up all those names, or sorry, Spector was trading John Shannon. When John Shannon brought up those names, he said, if you get Mike Gillis, you get Lawrence Gilman. Lawrence Gilman is the current AGM of the Leafs, and they're also doing something right now. So you look at that and you say, okay, so do we get two guys that are currently involved in very good organizations for one price? That's kind of it's a risky bet because it's two guys that have never been GMs, two guys that are running in different organizations that have different levels of competition and different starting pieces, but two guys that come together might prove to be a good option for the Oilers. So I don't know. Like it's to me that's the prevailing option.
Yeah. It's not the worst one, that's for sure. I mean, I don't even know what the best option is, but God.
Honestly, at this point, I'm of the opinion that you got to bring an assistant GM in that isn't an old established guy. Because every time we brought in a guy that is just, has been around, so to speak, nothing's been gotten done. I think it's genuinely time to give an opportunity to like your Lawrence Gill.
John Chase type guy.
John Chia.
Yeah, from Arizona. Yeah.
Now, Chia is about to get fired, and as soon as that team pops off, it will be because of his efforts. But that might be a case of overvaluing skill and not recognizing character. Because Domi went from to holy shit, he's carrying the Canadiens into the playoffs.
Yeah, but Galchenyuk's been pretty good for them too.
Yeah, that's true. Galchenyuk's been good. Yeah.
That'll go down as one of those trades, assuming that they both continue the way they are after the season, as a change of scenery, good for both teams kind of trade. As weird as that very rarely it does happen, assuming that Galchenyuk can actually improve. The biggest issue with the Coyotes right now is they've been absolutely decimated by injuries, like beyond ridiculous. But even then, I don't know. It's one of those.
Okay, so his focus, Gilman's focus, is on the analytical side of money. That would concern me. Sorry, continue.
Well, I was gonna say, what about something like Kelly McCrimmon coming in with Keith Gretzky still being there? Because as far as we know, Keith Gretzky is still gonna be here, and although he's not gonna be GM, what if he's a GM? Would like I don't want to even. I have this thing about nepotism with the Oilers after the last 13 years, but what about you guys with that one? Like, where do you stand on that?
I don't really. I might be the lone guy over here going like. I don't see what he really brings to the organization. I really don't.
Yeah.
Because it just seems like a yes man that people claim that like he drafts well. It's like, no, he's drafted well for the Boston Bruins, but nothing's really worked out for the Oilers.
Yeah, I kind of feel like an AGM is more or less a yes man, honestly, and less an AGM in title and more of like special advisor to the GM or something stupid like that. I'm not a fan of that, honestly. I mean, those jobs they could be filled, honest to God, by innumerable number of people within the NHL. I'm sure of it. Like, those jobs are not impressive to me.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I guess we'll find out in the next couple of weeks here. Do you think they'll decide before our first game of Saturday, or do you think that we won't find out for a little bit here?
I wouldn't be surprised if we go the rest of this season as is.
Yeah, I see that. I see that happening. And honestly, would you guys agree that that might be the best case scenario?
Depends on where we are at the trade deadline, honestly. We're buyers, sellers. We got to choose one or the other, obviously, and I think we're going to be leaning more towards selling. If we're going that route, I mean, we got to, someone's name has to be on it.
Yeah.
So.
And if it's Keith Gretzky, there's going to be a lot of really mad Oilers fans.
Yeah.
So
100%.
There's a lot of fans that are actually no. I think that the Oilers fans are wanting Keith Gretzky. The insider Oilers fans that go like, oh, Keith Gretzky drafted this player. But honestly, if you're someone that stands on the outside, what sounds most nepotistic?
Yeah.
But honestly, rehiring Cates or putting the brother of Gretzky as your GM?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
All right, let's go on to the other hypothetical trade or the AHL game. your choice, Adam.
I mean, let's hop into the Ryan McDonough one, because I think that one is interesting to say the least.
It couldn't just be the 4th overall for Ryan McDonough.
No,
it has to be more.
There's a few things. So there's a few things that came out for it. Essentially, just for context for everyone watching, the initial trade was Ryan McDonough for the 4th overall pick we had in 2016 when we selected Jesse Puljujarvi. The initial going was that the Rangers wanted to trade up so they could select Clayton Keller before Arizona could, and then in that case we'd be taking Ryan McDonough, and I think we would have to throw in another pick at some point, or that was the main focus of it. That was the main focus of it. The end result of that trade, because we would have had Ryan McDonough, we wouldn't have had a trade of Adam Larson, which means that people are saying, in theory, we would have had Ryan McDonough and Taylor Hall.
Yeah.
The other one that was brought up that Arun brought to my attention was actually that there was Backlund and Wideman for the Oilers' 2nd overall pick for the Flames, and the Oilers just swapped first-round picks. In which case, the Oilers would have targeted Sergachev, and we still might have traded.
We'd have Backlund in that circumstance.
We had Backlund and Wideman. Backlund would have been.
Let's be honest here. Wideman is not good, but Backlund is a big ingredient in that.
Backlund is a pretty good player.
He would have been useful.
He's fallen off a cliff, big time.
He was good.
2 years ago, he was okay.
So let's start with the first portion of that. Peter Chiarelli turned it down primarily because the Blue Jackets obviously selected Pierre-Luc Dubois instead of Jesse Puljujarvi, and he was consensus 3rd overall, so it was a shock to everyone at the time. Would you guys have been upset if McDavid or Chiarelli had pulled the trigger on that trade? And keep in mind, we'll go one, assuming Jesse had been selected when we would have gone, and 2, that we would have ended up with, because knowing what we know now about Jesse is vastly different than what was said at the time.
Yeah, I mean, of course.
Hindsight 2020.
Yeah, I mean, of course I'd be upset at the time. Jesse was, he was NHL ready. He was the number 3 pick in that draft. Everybody knew it. And he dropped to 4. I mean, I remember even where I was. Like, I remember watching even, and I was like, holy shit.
We were texting each other. We're like, what the fuck just happened?
Yeah, like, we just had Jesse Puljujarvi drop into our lap, MVP of the last World Juniors. He scored, like, 2 points a game.
2.2.
Playmaking, power forward, like...
Responsible all-around player.
Yeah, responsible. Really good defensively. That was one of his big tells.
Number 1 right wing beside McDavid for the next decade.
That was literally what we said the day he was drafted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go.
So
we were considering him essentially to be our Gary Curie.
Exactly. That was the other comparison I think we made.
Because Curie was a guy that was really defensively focused.
In that aspect, then, would it have been a bad trade at the time?
I don't know if it would have been a bad trade. It would have been an unpopular trade.
I think that's a good way to put it. Because, again, Ryan McDonough's also not as good as he was a couple of years ago, but at the time, 2 years ago, before he went to Tampa, he was godly. He was he was one of the best defensemen in the league.
Even in Tampa, he's godly.
I mean, he's good. He's not...
He was in the conversation in the first quarter of the season for Defenseman of the Year.
He was being outplayed by Hedman, but that's because Hedman is...
Hedman's not another level.
Hedman is Hedman. But yeah, I think... me personally, I think had that trade happened, I probably would have been pretty upset for a while, but hindsight... I mean, we would have got Ryan McDonough. They would have been on defense. I think the other issue was that he only had another year on his contract. At the time, sorry.
We would have still had Taylor Hall.
We would have still had Taylor Hall, but Ryan McDonough wouldn't need an extension. We probably wouldn't have had Lucic.
Oh no!
Wouldn't have had Lucic. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean that.
I don't know. I look at GM, in their honest state of mind, would have thought that a 37-year-old forward would be capable of replacing your 20-something, 25-year-old.
I think the biggest issue that someone brought up about this was that Peter Chiarelli thought that taking Jesse Puljujarvi, who isn't necessarily a sure thing, despite he looked like a sure thing, over a defenseman who's already been established in the NHL, who is exactly what we need in defense, has been the biggest hole in the organization for 10 years, and is willing to trade, and the Rangers are willing to trade for him.
Yeah, and on top of that, like the crux in all of this, James, I'll give it to you next. The crux in all of this is the fact that Puljujarvi, honestly, I think more than a prospect thing, I think it was a development thing with him, because he was essentially dicked around for 39, 41, 42 games in the NHL level before he was finally freaking sent down to the AHL. That's stupid. He should have spent, like, after the 9 games, they should have realized, okay, he needs to go back to the SHL, and he needs another year. But no, it was like Chiarelli was forcing it.
Yeah. After those 9 games, he should have gone back to Finland, and that should have been the end of him that year. We never should have heard about him again.
No. And honestly, I think he would have been a much better player for it.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
Because, like, if you look at it, Keller didn't jump into the NHL right away. Marner didn't jump into the NHL right away.
Mm-hmm.
Mind you, I'm talking about smaller players, but even if we're talking about, like, the bigger guys, like...
Puljujarvi doesn't use his body anyway. Like,
no, he doesn't.
Yamamoto throws more hits than Puljujarvi does.
But Yamamoto is a guy that throws hits like every other second.
Yeah, that's because that's his game. I love it, but
and as much as you can love it, like what I look at is Gaudreau has 5 hits on the season, and he also has 74 points on the season.
74 points. You know, I'll take 74 points over someone that's got 100 hits.
Yeah. So. Yeah. I don't know. I think, well, Puljujarvi, let's be real, Puljujarvi should be in the AHL right now. He needs to be working on his game in the AHL. He doesn't need to be getting lambasted in the AHL.
I don't know what is going to be the end game with Puljujarvi, but I would pretty much bet a testicle at this point that he's not going to be an Oiler long term, and he is a bust, honestly.
Honestly, like, I'm going to agree with you here and just jump on that and say, like, if I'm the Oilers, I'm looking to get a decent return for him right now.
But the problem is he has no value. We've gotten to the point where
he does have value in the sense of his name has value.
Yeah.
Because based upon how this is going, this is the sunken cost fallacy.
No, you're absolutely right.
People are doing like it's too bad right now, but like the way I do with Puljujarvi is like it doesn't look like it's going to get any better.
It's the same thing with Yakupov at the time we traded him. It's the exact same situation. And the problem is it's the same sting. It's the same. No, he's a fun player to watch. He loves the game. It's clear that he's having fun and
a source of memes.
And on the other side is when he has a good game, like 2 weeks ago when he played it, he had a really good game. He was the best player on the ice, and you're like, wow, that's the player we drafted. That's the guy we need. And then he turns out next game and plays horrific, and you're just like, what? How? Like. Why? Like the Yakupov of a game where he'll go out and score 2 goals and throw hits and like just be insane, and then the next game he looks lost and he loses the puck in the defensive zone.
He is like still 21, I believe it is.
20. He's not even 21. He's still a kid.
20. He's young, but that's also why I'm saying trade him now, because we have value if we trade him now.
You can tell these forwards, these young forward prospects, when they're good, like you can extrapolate with forwards better than you can with defensemen, especially better than you can with goalies. He's 21 in a couple of months. You can tell. Mm-hmm. You can tell.
If Griffin Reinhart could get a 16th and a 33rd, anything is possible.
That was Chiarelli.
Oh, was it? Sorry.
Pretty sure it was.
It was Chiarelli.
Yeah, that's God.
All right, so let's this is a random ass topic that's on the side here. Chiarelli's best move and Chiarelli's worst move.
Oh my God.
Best move.
No, worst move first. Worst move first.
Oh God.
There's so many, so you have to pick one.
I'll go with the Reinhart trade. Reinhart trade. It happened the same day that we drafted Connor McDavid, and I remember even where I was. I was out at a coworker's house in Sherwood Park, just east of Edmonton, And I sat on the couch, and people asked me, "Is that a good trade?" And I was like, "No." The day that trade was made, I was like, "That is not a good trade, and I think we're going to regret that." And we did.
I mean, he won the Calder, so.
Shit!
All right.
Right. It's Barzal that won the Calder.
Oh. Yeah. Wait. Reinhardt won a Memorial Cup. Ooh.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That's better. Very few players have those. Very few NHLers have those.
Yes, that's very true.
The credit you had on that own helmet.
Yeah. It's hard because I don't know whether it's because in hindsight the Lucic contract is fucking horrific. Like we knew he was gonna be. We knew Lucic was gonna get to this point. We knew he was gonna get to this point, but we thought it was gonna be 3 to 4 years down the line from now, not 3 years into the contract. And I remember us talking about it because we've been doing this 4 years now. I think 3.5, almost 4 years. I remember when that contract was signed, and we went, "That's a fuck ton of money," and we went, "Wow, that's a long." But the thing is, the worst part was the length of the contract. It was 7 years, and then we went, "Okay, Lucic is already 28. He's going to be he has a degenerative back issue. He's never the game he plays isn't going to stick around. He's already slow." So like I was thinking 4 or 5 years in the contract, like he'll be useful. 3 years he put up more goals in a span of 4 games than he had in a calendar year.
Yeah.
In 84 games, he put up 4 goals, and then in 3 games after he put up 4 goals. And then he won't produce again for the rest of the year. Like it's just so I think and with the fact that he has no trade. And the fact that amount of cap is being tied up in a player that's playing on the 4th line that we have to keep around for the next 4 years, that to me is the worst possible deal because it was a player that we didn't need initially, that has underperformed drastically, and that we're paying significantly, and we can't even cap bear him. Like his contract is buyout protected.
Yep.
Even with all that said, I still think the Reinhardt deal is worse. Like, I still think the Reinhardt deal is worse than that. Just...
All right, everyone, finish this one off.
I'm having some bad network connection here, so I apologize if I'm stuttering. But I will say, as much as people might say, stand around and say, "Oh, it's not that bad," but I think in terms of a theme, the most comparable, like bad, and I mean it's bad in the sense of it set the tone. Was Adam Larson for Taylor Hall. Yes, the trade at the time looked like it was almost, perhaps, say even. That being said, Taylor Hall, not the very next season. In the very next season, we made the second round of the playoffs. Great. It looked like we were in fantastic position. I remember came on Facebook comment where I posted and said this is one of the worst trades the Oilers have ever made, and he said like, "Do you regret this trade now?" And I'm like, "Fucking hell, no." And a year later, Larson average, and Taylor Hall won the Hart. It's a Hart Trophy winner. He carried his team to the playoffs. The New Jersey Devils in the past 10 years have as many more playoff appearances than the Oilers do. And part of that has to do with Taylor Hall making the playoffs. And now Eberle, with the Islanders, seems destined to make the playoffs. Yakupov's made the playoffs. They all have.
All right. Well,
and it just becomes a matter of the asset that we trade. It's not just a signing. So with the signings, I can understand, okay, taxation is something that you need to consider when you're signing a player. But in terms of the value that you're getting in a trade, if it's not even and you're slightly losing every time, it's an overall loss. And I think in terms of a theme of the GMing that we got, that's what we got. And I think that's why it's the worst move that he's made.
Yeah.
Because it set the standard for what moves would look like. Anyway, after the sadness, AHL All-Star. Hey, Adam, I love seeing your forehead there.
I'm looking up the trade so I can see which are the good ones because I can't remember any good ones.
All right, good ones. Right, forgot about good ones. I'm gonna say I'll 100% say this is a Glenn Slater gift. Picking up Cam Talbot for a second rounder, that was a huge win. Cam Talbot went on to become essentially the 4th place Vezina finisher in that season. He carried us through a significant number of games, played fantastic. Unfortunately, Cam Talbot has regressed heavily. I think that has a lot to do with teams just figuring out the way that he plays within our conference, especially. But that being said, I think that was one of his best moves.
I'll say the Patrick Maroon trade with Anaheim. We traded Martin Gernat, who was kind of a lanky, big defenseman, and the 4th round pick, I believe, 4th or 5th round pick.
5th round pick with Anaheim retaining salary.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I mean, Gernat never developed into anything. He's back playing in Europe now, and Maroon was riding shotgun with McDavid for a season and a bit. So, Maroon got like 27 goals playing with McDavid one year or something like that. So that's a pretty hefty one. I will give Chiarelli credit on that one.
Yeah, I
think give Chiarelli credit now.
I think I was gonna agree with James on that one. Pat Maroon is my go-to. Cam Talbot was a good trade, but I still chalk that more up to Glenn Sather giving us one last hit before he retired than I do Chiarelli. It's still a good trade, don't get me wrong, but that's definitely more of a here you go kind of trade than a I did something right trade.
For context, for people that don't know, Glenn Sather was the 80s general manager for the Oilers. And that was his retirement season from GMing and with hockey altogether. Sorry, Adam.
Yeah, so I mean, that's pretty much it. I think, Pat Maroon was a big impact player while I was here. He had his moments where he was lazy and it seemed like he was not interested, but when he was on, he was on. He played well with McDavid. He went to the net. Fans loved him. And then, of course, he meshed well. He got to see his son more often. Some stuff worked out for him in Edmonton. And it was good while he was here. And the best part about the whole thing is we traded him, we didn't sign him to a massive deal before he started playing poorly again. And that sounds bad, but we have this thing as Oilers fans that's going on with Chia right now, with the fan base, is that every time we have a big guy that plays well and seems to have relatively soft hands and puts up a lot of goals, even if he's playing way above his level, the Oilers fans want to sign him for a few years because it seems like they think he'll be a big impact player, and they go somewhere else and they flop, or they end up here and they flop. Pat Maroon wasn't that.
Yeah, okay, so really quickly transitioning. We'll talk about this very quickly. McDavid All-Star Game, you guys watch it?
I did.
Watch highlights.
I did watch it all. I watched it all.
Did you really?
What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm a unicorn. I watched.
You are the last person I expected to watch the whole thing.
Yeah,
I mean, he gets to watch good players.
Nice haircut, by the way. Nice haircut.
I started watching the beginning, and then I was like, what the hell? There's only 10-minute periods? And then they had 2 periods of 10 minutes. So that drew me in. I was like, what the hell is up with this? I don't remember it being like this. And then the Metropolitan, or who was it that played the first period? It was
Gibson.
The Central and the Pacific.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
And
it was
the Central
10-1 or something like that, the score.
Fucking crushed the Pacific.
Yeah.
So I was watching it because of that. I was like, what the hell is going on here? I know it's the All-Star Game, but I thought it'd be a little bit more even than this. So that drew me in for the first period. And then the second period had Crosby, who wasn't there for the skills competition. So I was like, okay, I got to watch that. And then the third period, I had to see who won. So,
I just realized I actually did watch the game. I was so tired from skiing, I couldn't pick up the remote, so I just sat there and watched the game. I fell asleep during the third game. I forgot about that.
That reminds me of, was it an old joke? Because they get donations on Twitch. And an old joke that they could get is like, oh my God, X streamer, thank you very much. I was depressed, bedridden for years, and then I turned on your stream, and then I finally got up and turned it off and went outside because your stream was so bad it can I need to get outside.
Yeah. It was just, oh man, like the first game I was watching, I was like, oh, I'll watch McDavid and Drai settle, that'll be fun, and then maybe I can watch Pettersson, and because at one point Jim Houston called down to the bench and told Bill Peters to put McDavid, Pettersson, and Gaudreau out, and they did.
Gaudreau scored.
Gaudreau, and I was like, that's pretty funny, all right. And I was like, okay, get sucked in, and then they just get fucking walloped. Like John Gibson is just getting lit the fuck up. Like it's not even close. I'm like, what the hell is going on here? And then I'm watching McDavid and Drai something. I'm like, I swear to God they were drunk. Like I'm 95% sure at least a quarter of their team was chugging beers in the dressing room because I've never seen the Pacific last year was pretty good. Like I watched them play. I'm like, look, they're kind of doing shit. And then this year I was like,
look, Taylor Hall wasn't playing for any team, so it was open season.
Like it was impressive. Like it was just fucking terrible. And I was like, well, I might as well watch the second game then. And the second game was an actual hockey game, and the third game, I guess, Crosby ran away with it. But it was just like, I swear to God, I was texting my buddy, and he's a Flames fan. And he was like, I'm happy Johnny finished early because now he can start relaxing, and they're probably just drinking beers in the locker room. Like I think they were doing that before the game. Like there's no way they weren't. Someone brought some weed. Someone fucking like Bill Peters just slipping edibles into the guy's water bottles, some shit. I don't know. It was ridiculous. But
anyway, so the big competition, skill competition wins is Draisaitl. First let me go to McDavid won the fast skater competition, third year in a row, which sets a new record. Which I don't think this record legitimately matters because most players decide not to show up our second or third year. So honestly, McDavid showing up alone is a surprise upon itself.
Before we go,
and then Draisaitl winning the best passer for fastest passer, which turned into a bit of a controversy because demonstrating all of these skills competition, the women's hockey team, the U.S. women's hockey team.
Brianna Decker was Canadian.
Was it Canadian as well?
It was mixed. It was the best women's players, but yeah.
And I don't remember her name. Adam, if you could fill in.
Brianna Decker.
Brianna Decker, right? People were claiming that Brianna Decker the back time even better than when Draisaitl by 2 or 3 seconds, and then that became a huge controversy, and then eventually CCM as a publicity let's not call it, it's not an active show of good faith, decided to honor that because every winner gets $25,000, and they gave her $25,000. Do you guys think perhaps that this was perhaps a little bit overblown? Do you think that this might have been different if say like a Toronto Maple Leafs player was the one that won this, or a more high profile player than Draisaitl? Or do you guys think that just, it didn't matter? Because one of the things that came out was that when the NHL decided to actually go about testing the times, they found out that Brianna Decker was actually slower than Draisaitl by 2 or 3 seconds. So she wasn't the fastest passer. This is a very sensitive topic.
Yeah. I don't know. Like, if she won, then she won.
Yeah.
Give her the money.
But if you're not in the competition, can you win?
I think that she was in the competition.
Yeah,
she was trying. She was trying her hardest. She wasn't fucking the dog while she was doing that. So she was in the competition.
Sorry, I haven't heard that expression in a while. It's been a while.
Everyone knows what it means.
I think the biggest there's two sides to it. One, I think it wouldn't have mattered who was competing if they had won and she had beat their time, then she still got the payout. But I think the big thing is there was such a massive uproar right away that Brianna Decker won, and that it was blah blah blah, and it was publicized, and it was mass media. If they had not given her the money, CCM would have caught way more flack. So just paying the $25,000 is the best advertising they're going to get, and it was the right thing to do in this case. To be fair, she still came second, even if she was 2 to 3 seconds slower. She still was 3 seconds up on the person after Draisaitl. I think what we're seeing is that with the way the women demonstrated the events, they should potentially be in the events next year. I thought it was great. They showed the bench replay of I can't remember her name, Coin something, the American skater who did the fastest skater. Watching McDavid skate he's so fast and so smooth it looked unimpressive to me. The fact that I know he's a second faster than her.
It felt like he was holding back.
Whereas like she is fucking flying. Like on the bench, you can actually see how fast they're going. And part of it is I think they should have a view for McDavid and everyone else. But like she was, I think would have been 4th or 5th overall. But she was a second slower than McDavid. But she was fucking moving. And you can still see Connor. Connor doesn't look like he's trying too hard. He's still faster than everyone else, which is its own thing. But I agree with James. If you're gonna let the women demonstrate and they beat the guys, fucking pay them. Clearly, why not?
See, the odd thing that I consider is, I think it should be the way that Adam says it. I think that the representative should be sent from the U.S. the Canadian women's hockey team, as well as perhaps teams from other regions as well. So then, we're not only for 2 regions, and you're advertising for let's say Sweden or Russia or so on. But I think the biggest problem with this competition was simply the fact that she's there. That, like Brianna Decker in that circumstance was there to demonstrate the skills competition rather than to compete in the skills competition, right? So that's where the big question mark comes in terms of why didn't the NHL step in? It's like the NHL didn't step in because she's not competing. That's not why she was there.
Yeah.
But I do agree with you, Adam. I think they should be included in the competition in the future.
It's a good showcase for women's hockey.
It is.
Like everyone's always, women's hockey is nothing, and it's like, okay, well, it's different games. Like it's different. There's no contact. They play different, but when you watch it, it's competitive hockey. But you don't have a scale of how good they are because they're not play. You're so used to watching these guys play that you're not used to comparing them to the ladies. The only one I think they would have a hard time competing in is the hardest shot, and that's purely speculative. I have no idea. It's just based on.
It'd be interesting to see it. Honestly.
It'd be cool. I would love to see it because I guarantee there's some woman that can send a 95-mile-an-hour clapper. And
but the other problem that you'll run into, let's say the other problem that you run into is that if you hunting for ads or player interviews, or something, means that you have more players to cover in a segment that already doesn't turn in much money for the NHL outside of the host city. So in terms of a money perspective, sponsoring the women in this circumstance and supporting them isn't a financially incentivizing approach for the NHL, especially when they don't have a lot of support for it to begin with.
Well, then make it what is it? What's the women's hockey league called?
NWHL.
NWHL.
And they have the CWHL. They're looking to merge right now.
Yeah. Maybe they could look at merging those 2 leagues with their All-Star game. I don't know. That's a big ask. I don't know if it's realistic, but
it's a very, very long term in terms of understanding.
I think that's a good point though, Arun, is that it's not financially lucrative for the NHL to put the All-Star game on anyway. They make a small profit.
Yeah.
And to bring extra players, you have to insure and then pay, and then it doesn't really end up being productive. But with that said, it's better for the game, but the NHL won't do it because it's money based.
Yep. And the other aspect too is people keep going on in terms of why didn't you call this player to the NHL All-Star game? Why didn't you call this player to the All-Star game? The All-Star game isn't there to recognize that's why when people go oh, he was the first star All-Star all these times, I don't give a shit. Because the All-Star game in voting is a popularity contest, and then in the afterward is a financial incentive. Mm-hmm. Why do you think they called Jonathan Toews last year? Honestly, Jonathan Toews this year was more deserving to go.
Yeah.
Last year.
Well, and Mark Giordano didn't go because Leon Draisaitl voted for.
Didn't go because Calgary's not a big market.
I mean,
it's in San Jose, so they need to call Nicholson and Brent Burns.
The All-Star game is always gonna be some. It's always gonna be for the kids. It's never gonna be official. That's why like Gretzky's. I think Gretzky's record is like 5 goals in 1 period, and from the All-Star game. Like that doesn't really count as a.
That's not a record.
It's not a record.
That's why Sidney Crosby had a bye week last week, and he was the player of the week.
Yeah. So I don't know. It's.
Anyway, this has been a very productive podcast today. We've covered a lot of different topics, primarily which she is Chiarelli's firing, and everything associated with that, perhaps with potential replacements, problems or whatnot. Is it something actually in the water, and so on. In addition to that, we've also covered a little bit of the All-Star game. But I do want to make an announcement now. James, who has been with us, I hope I'm pointing in the right direction, who has been with us for our 4.5-ish years, or 4 years that we've been doing the podcast, is opting to take a break. It will likely be more of an extended one. It sounds like I'm just going to leave it at just personal reasons for the time being, and not go into any more detail than that. But as far as I know, Adam and I will be continuing, and we will be looking for a third. We're not sure yet, just as a replacement to James going forward. But thank you very much for joining us on this podcast today. I apologize for that little piece of sad news. We will try to be more consistent. Our schedules have not been great. We apologize for that. But anyway, this has been Arunatic, otherwise known as Arun on Reddit, or Arunatic5 on Reddit. Whoops, I switched that completely. Adam, otherwise known as Shweet44722 on Reddit, and Paul-McCartney- on Reddit, or James. Thank you very much for joining us today. Any last words?
No, it's been fun.
Last words. He might come back.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'll be available. I would think for like a guest spot as a fourth, or occasionally filling in. But yeah, it's been fun.
Well, it was great to have you, and I mean, Edmonton's not a big city. I'm sure we'll see you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, we'll see you guys next time.
See you guys, and thank you very much for joining us. Bye.